Lynn, thank you for that really nice introduction. And also, Enlighten Kitsap, thank you for inviting me to talk today. It's a real honor. It was a real honor to have been invited to speak with you. As Lynn said, I am the county commissioner from the northern third of the county. So most of my presentations are tailored to the north end of the county. I have realigned it to be more central and Bremerton focused, but I have friends here from South Kitsap and North Kitsap. And so I will try to make this relevant to everybody here. The way that I've organized it, I was asked to speak to kind of highlights of what's going on in the county and specifically what's going on with what are our new parks. And so I've organized this as an introduction of my background so you would understand why I'm here before you. And then sort of Kitsap County Government 101. And then an updates on all sorts of topical areas of interest like transportation, healthcare, affordable housing, that sort of thing. And then time for Q&A. So I've got my clock going and I will leave enough time for us to have a robust conversation because from my experience, I will give you an overview of things and then you'll have questions that will delve deeper than I would have gone in a slideshow. So that's how we're structuring it. I'm going to figure out how to move this. Let's see.
Now.
Okay. All right. Well, as Lynn said, I have been in elected office in Kitsap County. It says 20 plus years, but it's actually almost 25 years that I have been in elected office. First as a Bainbridge Island City Council member when I had a baby and I was pregnant and gave birth while I was on the Bainbridge City Council with my youngest daughter. I ran for the legislature in 2006 and served in the legislature until 2023 and then came back to local government in 2023. So these are pictures of the various places that I've worked. But I just wanted to sort of explain how I got here. So the picture of the cute kids is me and my siblings. I was the big sister. I'm the one in the blue dress. The other big guy on the other end is my twin brother, Scott. So we were twins. And the two in the middle are also twins. And they were a little bit less than 2 years younger than me. So for folks who know me or who have worked with me for some time, it kind of explains my weird ability to adapt and kind of go with the flow, be a leader when I have to be and a follower when I need to be. We had no natural birth order, and so that's sort of how I grew up as in that kind of an environment. Grew up in New Jersey. I went to college in Virginia. As Lynn said, I got a degree in economics. There was no degree like sustainable development or anything like that. The economics and environmental science my interest was in sustainable growth. And that was what I chose to do to merge those two disciplines. Schools in the whole country that had public policy school that focused on environmental issues. And so I went from college to the University of Washington for a graduate degree. And the picture of the tree was because I came to the University of Washington on a fellowship. So I had free tuition as long as I worked. And the fellowship was providing like very basic economic research on the employment impacts of the spotted owl set-asides. So what happens to local economies when you set aside timber that they had planned on harvesting? And I did work with a think tank at the University of Washington for 2 years and all over Washington and Oregon. And so that was part of the genesis of how I got to Washington State. That was just an amazing opportunity for somebody like me from the East Coast with the interests that I had. And then I had met my husband. He went to the University of Washington Law School and he didn't want to move to New Jersey. And he's from Louisiana and I did not want to go there. So we both looked for jobs in this area, and he got a job with the Kitsap County prosecutor right out of law school, and I got a job with Kitsap County Planning Department right out of graduate school. And so that was part of my formative early public service career, was working on the county's first Growth Management Act. And then I also ran the county's open space program. And the county had passed, the voters of the county had passed something called a conservation futures tax. I'm going to say back in 1990. And that's a assessment on all of your property taxes that is specifically supposed to go into a fund to pay for conservation land acquisition. And weirdly, nobody else in county government wanted to manage that program, but I was really excited about that. So that was one of my jobs in the planning department. And I've included a photo of Guillemot Cove, because that was one of the parks that I got to participate in purchasing and getting grants for back when I was a young planner. Then went on and did some other things. As I said, I ran for office and ended back in Kitsap County. And the young me buying Guillemot Cove never would have imagined that I was going to be the John Horsley of Kitsap County. If anybody remembers John Horsley, he was the North Kitsap County Commissioner. He brought Bangor to the county. He was long-term influential man. And he hired me. He was the commissioner that hired me all those years ago. So here's where we start a little bit of County Government 101, except I know from this audience that you guys know a lot of this. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But I've divided the county into the 3 commissioner districts by color. And I have a photo of Orrin Root, who is the most new commissioner. He's the South Kitsap County Commissioner. And then Katie Walters represents the orange part that's on the map, the Central and Bremerton area. But all 3 of us are elected countywide. So we have to come from our districts, but everybody votes for us. And so that gives us, each of us has expertise in the areas that we directly represent, but we're responsible for making sure that everything's going well across the county. Another thing that I want to say is that a lot of people are surprised to hear that there are 3 county commissioners. It's kind of an old-fashioned feeling government. We are the executive branch and the legislative branch. So we write the county ordinances and the county laws, and then we make sure that the apparatus of government implements them and works according to the laws. We write the budget for the entire county, even for all the other elected officials in the county. We're in charge of of writing their budgets. There are, I'm going to say, over a dozen other countywide elected officials. So all of the judges are elected, the county sheriff, the county prosecutor, the assessor, the auditor, and more, treasurer. They run their departments. We oversee their budgets. So it's a very, how would you say that? It's a very decentralized form of local government. And it is that structure in 32 of the 39 counties in the state. Only the big counties like King, Snohomish, Pierce, the bigger counties have what you hear of county executive and a county council. The rest of us have to do it all. So when I come across it like a King County Council person, I'm like, huh, like you have half the work we have. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, and I understand that it's text, but I want you all to know when Orrin and I got elected in 2024, the 3 commissioners sat down in a retreat, and we went through the county's mission statement, its visions, and its value statement. And we readjusted it to align with ours. So the mission that you see before you is very much updated. It includes, and the values are also very much updated, but it demonstrates the 3 of us working together to agree on how we want the county government that we're responsible for to function. And we can cover more of this if you're interested. But the new words that we've put into this over the last couple of years are integrity, welcoming, and responsiveness. And all three of us feel really strongly that we brought those words into the government that we work for. And then we also did an interesting thing. Again, I know this is a lot of words. This hadn't been done before, but we agreed, the three of us brainstormed on what do we want to accomplish this year under each of the goals that we had agreed on. And then we voted on them with the dot exercise, you know, where each of us put a dot. So I got to vote on Oren and Katie's, they got to vote on mine. And then we came up with a list of basically a work plan for the year that all three of us could agree were priorities. And that is what our staff are tasked to work on. So if one of you guys has a great new idea, I can be like, great idea. Let me bring it to the other two for our 2026 work plan, because our staff is focused on getting the stuff done that we agreed on this year. All right, and then a little bit about county budget. So what does the county do? There are 4 cities in Kitsap County: Port Orchard, Bremerton, Poulsbo, and Bainbridge. Who doesn't live in one of those cities? Who lives in unincorporated Kitsap County? Okay, a little less than half. If you live in a city, then you're familiar with your form of government as mayor and city council, but you are also represented by your county leadership too. So there's overlap. The county government is directly responsible for providing all the services that you would associate with a city. So the county sheriff is active in the unincorporated parts of the county. The sheriff partners with Bremerton Police Department, but their jurisdiction is unincorporated, non-city county. Our court system serves everybody in the cities in the county. The county roads are in an unincorporated county, and then Bremerton and Poulsbo have their own roads. So the county government, the law and justice part of county government, and the health and human services part of county government are where most of the intersection happens for all citizens of the county. So the county administers almost all of the social service programs that anybody in Kitsap County gets. So nurse assistance for people in nursing homes, homeless encampment relief, things like that. A lot of that is funded from federal and state funds that come to the county that go out into the communities. What I wanted to show you in this pie chart, though, is that half of the county budget is roads and law enforcement and the courts, so law and justice. That is where the bulk of the money gets spent in our county. And that's true of almost all counties in the state. And this pie chart shows the scale of, I'm going to try to get rid of some of these boxes. This shows you where the county gets money. And so the black part, the charcoal part of the pie chart is sales tax revenue, and the green part is property tax revenue. The sales taxes in Kitsap County and throughout the state, sales tax is generated when you buy something. If you buy it in a store, the sales tax goes to the jurisdiction where your store is located. So if you shop at the Kitsap Mall, that money goes to Kitsap County government. If you shop in downtown Bremerton, that goes to the city of Bremerton. However, if you live in Kitsap County and you order anything online and it gets delivered to your house, that revenue goes to Kitsap County. If you live in Bremerton and you buy a couch from some store that's online and it gets delivered to you, Bremerton gets the sales tax from your couch being delivered to you. So sales tax is both based on where you purchase it, if you purchase it in a store, and where you live. So if you know Kitsap County well, Silverdale is unincorporated, and it is the major source of county government's revenue, is the sales that happen in Silverdale. Property taxes are collected countywide. All people, whether you live in a city or a county or in the county, pay property taxes. And we have a neat little graphic that I like to use that shows for every dollar you pay in property taxes in Kitsap County, this is basically where your money goes. So for the county general government, it's about 8 cents of your dollar. The roads, the county has a special roads assessment. You can see all this on your property taxes. That's 11 cents. So you're actually paying more in taxes for the roads than you are for general government, which I think is interesting. The state levy on your property taxes is 100% to support public schools across the state. That's 28 cents. That may or may not be paying for schools here. It goes to the state and then the state redistributes it. Local education, the levies on average across the county are 29 cents. Your fire districts are 20 cents, and then everybody else is 0.06. So like that it would be if you get your water if you pay Kitsap PUD taxes, everybody pays a library tax. Some people are paying port taxes. That 0.6 cents is everybody else. Now, if you live in a city, you don't pay the green part. You don't pay the roads tax for the county. For the most part, that you swap that out. So that would be your Bremerton tax is roughly 11 cents, or your Poulsbo tax is roughly 11 cents. But that just shows you where your every dollar goes in your property taxes. And then the last thing I'll say about money related to the county is that the county budget historically operates in a structural deficit. So every year there's a budget shortfall and they have to figure out what to do about it. The budget deficit that we're looking at for 2026 is the first time since the recession that we aren't able to make up for the excess spending. And we actually have to make spending reductions going into 2026. And there's two reasons for that, which I will share. One reason is that the county government was literally hemorrhaging staff after COVID. So as of a few years ago, so we could not keep people in our roads department. The planning department people were leaving frequently. And a lot of that was because Pierce County and King County pay more than Kitsap County. And if you live in South Kitsap and you're working in Port Orchard at the county offices, it's just as easy to pick up and go to Gig Harbor or Tacoma. So we were losing a lot of people to other area governments. So prior to my arrival, the county started a salary survey to see like, where are we at market? What's the market? How much are we, do we need to pay people? Do we need to pay people more? Are we overpaying, et cetera? That study came in last year and we readjusted a lot of salaries. And we knew when we did that it would put the budget out of whack by a few $1 million. The decision at the time was we need to pay people what they're worth. It's a real waste of money and really bad for morale to have this constantly rotating situation of staff leaving. So we're going to pay people the market rate to recruit them and retain them, but that will create a budget shortfall, and we will need to figure out, that may be less jobs, less services going forward. And we're now at the point where we have to determine that. The second part of this that I think is really interesting, so I'm giving you some like inner county gossip, but it's true, is that when somebody goes to jail, the county is constitutionally required to make sure that they're taken care of. So that means if they're sick, they automatically get medical care. Statistics are something like 80% of the people that are getting booked into the jail right now have fentanyl in their system. So most of the people in jail have very significant behavioral health or addiction issues. And the longer they're in jail, the more medical care we have to provide so that they can become healthy again and healthy enough to testify or take care of their business. So we have really big medical costs in the jail. In this state, there is only one private provider now that will provide that medical care. And they have increased their rates significantly, mostly because every time somebody gets hurt or dies in jail, they get sued. So they have to massively increase their liability insurance. That has led to $2 to $3 million more in jail costs every year for nothing. Like nobody's benefiting from that. It's not like our staff are being paid better or people are getting better care. It's just a fact that that cost went up and we have to pay it. We are working with the legislature right now to find like a solution to that situation. But in the short term, we have to figure out how we're going to pay for that. So, again, a lot more detail than you need, but I wanted to have the opportunity to talk to you about the structural deficit that we're in, and it most likely won't go away. Okay, and so some highlights of what has been going on in county government was last year, the county adopted its 20-year comprehensive plan, which is the determination for how the county is going to grow both with jobs and with housing over the next 20 years. We're required by the state to produce this plan, and we got it done. It's currently being appealed, so we'll find out how that goes, but we got the project done. And that plan was the first time, I'm going to say, in the 30 years the county's been doing this, that there was very little expansion of our urban areas. We worked with the cities to basically say we have enough room in our cities to accommodate the growth that we know is coming here. So we're going to focus on building up, not out. And so that was a big change for the county and for county government to keep a hold on all of the urban growth areas. There was a small expansion in Bremerton, over near neck of the woods, out near Kitsap Lake, and then a couple of different zoning changes around the county, mostly for industrial jobs or some apartment buildings and close to urban areas. But for the most part, we said, let's just redevelop. Let's focus on doing this. I put the picture of the cute salamander, and I hope people think salamanders are cute. I think that salamander's cute. We also, at the same time that we did the comprehensive plan, we updated the county's critical areas ordinance, which is our environmental regulations. And I was really proud that we made the regulations stronger, not weaker. And one of the things that we did was we are doing better protection for small wetlands, not tiny wetlands, but smaller wetlands. And that's because of the new science that amphibians actually need to be able to go back and forth. It's not just the big wetlands, they need the little ones too. So that was a little bit of what we did. We also passed the county's first tree canopy protection ordinance. That just went into effect in April. And the goal there is that when developers are doing larger projects, that they first look at the land and look at the trees on the land and decide if any of the big trees or existing trees can be preserved in clusters or used in the landscape, rather than just clear cutting the property from fence line to fence line and then replanting. We have yet to see whether that's going to work, but that was a big project for us last year. So those are some of the things that we did in the plan. So then this year, we are focusing on the rural parts of the county. So last year, we did a bunch of work in Kingston. We're doing some work in Silverdale too, which I'll get to. But we're looking at all of the regulations in the rural areas and whether they need to be modernized for contemporary living. So we're looking at stuff like wedding venues and wineries. They produce noise that neighbors complain about, yet at the same time, there are economic activities in rural areas that when we're trying to preserve farms. One of the other things we're looking at is actually, what do the farmers who are still here, which are mostly small scale farmers, what do they need? What do future farmers need? What kind of policies should we have to make sure that we still have some small scale farming here? Child care right now is prohibited in rural areas, and there's a question about whether that's like, we have a child care shortage. What if somebody wants to build a small in-home facility on 20 acres and have an outdoor child care center? Like, that's fun. How do we encourage that sort of thing? So the year of the rural right now is a lot of policy focused on the rural parts of the county. And we've gotten there's been a lot of concern about the Department of Community Development and the permitting process, both from developers and from neighbors who are concerned. And so there's a bunch of things we've been involved with. One of them is trying to get the whole permitting system to be more efficient. And nobody here was involved in that, I don't think. But that's gone into place. And so permits are supposed to be being processed faster. And importantly, the permits themselves are now all online, so neighbors can see them and the public can see what's going on. So that was a big technology improvement project. The other fun thing that we've done, it just went into effect, is that we worked with the 4 cities, and the 4 cities in the county all contracted with an architect out of Olympia to design 4 models of accessory dwelling units. So those 8, it's ADU on the screen, but that means accessory dwelling unit. That is like when you put a cottage or a very small home on your property, but it's not the primary residence. We all agreed on 4 plans that are pre-approved. So if somebody wants to build one, they just have to pick out their plan, and it should cut off a few weeks in the permitting process. I think that's really fun. And we have a new DCD director, Rafe Weisham, who used to be the XO for PSNS. So he ran the PSNS complex, and he doesn't necessarily have a planning background, but he's proven to be a very good manager, which is why we hired him. Okay, I mentioned we were doing Year of the Rural. We are also focused on a plan for redeveloping downtown Silverdale. So the mall down to Old Town. And Commissioner Walters is the lead on that. The planning for that has just sort of the visioning part of that has just started. But we anticipate all sorts of getting like real life examples from real life developers about why nobody's redeveloped downtown Old Town Silverdale for 30 years. Like, what's the holdup here? There's a lot of money in this county. How come nobody's investing? And so that is part of the discussion that's going on. If you're interested in urban planning, this is like textbook example of like getting your feet wet in urban planning, because Silverdale there's a lot of work to be done to make Silverdale walkable and livable. Okay, and I'll touch a little bit on transportation right now. The county commissioners were kind of consumed with the ferry boat situation over the last, I'm going to say 6 months to a year, but that's finally stabilized. Bremerton finally got its second boat. The hybrid electric, the new boat went on the Bainbridge line today for its maiden voyage. So that, and the reports I've been seeing are that it's so quiet. Like, people are loving it right now. So it feels like the governor and the legislature has stabilized us from that standpoint. We are currently doing a study on intra connections for the Kitsap Transit ferry. So is there a market, and is it something we can pay for to do like a Silverdale to Bremerton or Port Orchard to Poulsbo? So is it realistic to revive the mosquito fleet? And then Gorst has been on the radar, on the planning block for at least a decade, 20 years. The DOT is finally going to take a little bit of action in the Gorst area. They're replacing some fish culverts, which is going to be a nightmare. But when they're done, they're putting roundabouts on the part between Gorst and Belfair. There's going to be 2 roundabouts that should move traffic better in the short term while we continue to work on a bigger solution to the Gorst congestion. And then this bridge is the Hood Canal Bridge. And we only have a smattering of North Kitsap people here, but that creates traffic nightmares when the Navy or a yachting recreational sailor comes through. And there are a number of different efforts going on to reduce the congestion from that. And I can talk more about that if people are interested. Should I just admit, Chris? Okay, healthcare is an issue everywhere in Kitsap County. We are actually a healthcare desert, like officially named that. So there's a bunch of things going on. A bunch of things going on there. The county partnered with St. Michael's and Olympic College, and we put in $7 million of ARPA funds, money that we got from the federal government a few years ago, to expand the campus, the Olympic College campus in Paulsbo, and make that entire school campus an allied health campus. So healthcare training has already been expanded there, and there should be hundreds of more people going through some of the programs. It's stuff like radiology, nurse techs. It's kind of the entry level jobs that a lot of the primary care offices and the hospital need. So that's one element. Virginia Mason, St. Michael's should be finishing at 74 bed addition in the next year. So that should provide some more healthcare accessibility there. Also interesting, because you wouldn't know it if you weren't following it, PCHS, which is Peninsula Community Health Services, it's our community healthcare provider. They are now in the housing business, and they've also expanded throughout the county. So I was just at a ribbon cutting with them in Paulsbo. They have a whole new doctor's office in Paulsbo. And then Kitsap Mental Health is also expanding its campus to provide more services for youth. The Bremerton Multi-Care Emergency Room just opened. See how that helps with the whole emergency room, urgent care situation. And then the Naval Hospital is just, it continues to downsize itself. And the county, the cities, public health, and our congressional delegation are working on getting those services reopened. I don't know. We felt like we had a chance a year ago. I don't know where that effort will go now with the administration that's cutting costs. All right, and then a little bit about public safety and housing. Who knows about the county's HEART team, homeless encampment outreach? Okay, this is a cool thing. So county very much in the forefront of helping people move out of encampments across the state. This county is doing amazing things. We have a HEART team that is a social worker, a sheriff, and a couple of service providers that go out whenever there is an encampment or even a tent identified by somebody. A small team goes out and works with the people in the encampment or the people in the tent, and works to find them better alternatives. And so one by one, they're moving people into more permanent shelters. And that has proven to be immensely effective. That people don't remember, but think back 2 or 3 years ago when there were like very big encampments behind the hospital in Silverdale and along some of the roadways. You don't see that as much anymore. Now it's really 1 or 2. Bremerton has a different situation, and our HEART team is working back up for the city of Bremerton, but Bremerton has their own program that they have. The other interesting thing to report is that Kitsap County opened its first homeless shelter ever in Port Orchard. It's called we call it the Mile Hill Shelter. It's on Mile Hill in Port Orchard. It has room for 72 people, but it hasn't had more than 40 there at a time. What's unique about it is that it's set up for families, and so it's been uniquely successful since it opened this spring in bringing in families who've been living in their car. They may have just lost their housing for a day or two, and it's a safe, clean place for people to bring their children. And there's like toys and a reading area and stuff. It's really sweet. And then it also is one of the first shelters in the area that allows people to bring their pets. And so it has a dog kennel, and a veterinarian comes in once a week and checks on animals. You can bring any pet, cat, ferrets, birds, but mostly dogs is what they're seeing. And then this county has a very robust therapeutic courts program. And if you're not familiar with that, we were on the cutting edge of both therapeutic courts and crisis intervention. And crisis intervention is where you train law enforcement to work with people in crisis instead of arresting them or shooting them. And that this sheriff's office was ahead of that by 10 years compared to the rest of the state. Very robust crisis intervention program. And then our therapeutic courts are set up for people with mental health, people with drug or alcohol addiction, veterans. We have a juvenile, a youth program. Those are courts where instead of going to jail, you go to this court and you work through a program of improvement. And so you get the mental health care that you need, or you enlist in a recovery program, and the judge holds everybody accountable for following through. And if you graduate from it, your court case gets dismissed. And so we were one of the first in the state to do that, and we have a very robust program. All right, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about affordable housing. The county distributes affordable housing funds from the federal government directly to nonprofits throughout the county in a competitive way. But we also have, when you pay sales tax, 1/10 of 1% of the sales tax goes for an affordable housing program. It generates about $7 million a year. And again, it's a competitive grant program for affordable housing projects throughout the county. And I listed a few. Bremerton has been very successful in getting some of these affordable housing grants. So just a few things that are new that have just opened or will be opening. There is right on Warren Avenue, before you get to the bridge, before you get to Olympic College even, there's a new 30-unit apartment building that is for young people who have just exited the foster care system or that have come out of one of our therapeutic courts. So there's social services there and subsidized or free housing for young people to help them get launched. There's another new building that was in the newspaper, also on Wheaton Way. I'm looking to see where we are. Just a block or two this way. It's I think it's yellow, but it's set up like perpendicular to the road. That's the Wheaton Landing housing project. That was built, and then the Bremerton Housing Authority purchased it for low-income housing, and they're attracting families whose kids go to school in that neighborhood. So that's pretty exciting. And then I listed a few others. The biggest one really is St. Vincent de Paul on Callow is expanding its shelter and its transitional housing program. They have a long way to go because it's a big, ambitious project, but the county's been helping them with that. Okay, economic development, just a little bit of gossip that you might not know about. The first one on here is that the World Cup is coming to Seattle next year. And the county is working with Bremerton and Bainbridge Island to get some of that fan revenue and fan base over here. And so there's a big promotional, and Port Orchard as well. There's big promotional stuff going on with that right now. But Bremerton is going to be a fan base, which means they are getting some special funding from the World Cup to be able to have like open air parties and like watch soccer out on 4th Avenue or 4th Street, that kind of thing. So I think it'll be fun if it's organized well. But that's a big thing that the county's been working with our partners on. The Navy is also doing a big revitalization project. They're upgrading all of the bays that the ships come in on, like all the concrete that you see at the shipyard will be replaced and modernized. And that's they are saying that's a $4 billion impact. I know there's some people here that are interested in environmental issues. That is very likely to use all of the like sand and aggregates that the region has while it's being built. So there are going to be some economic impacts, positive and negative on both sides, but that is a huge project that's going on. And then there's a modest size racetrack being proposed down by the Bremerton Airport. And they're still trying to get their funding pulled together, but that is also going to have an outdoor amphitheater that would seat about 20,000 people, I think, lots of people. And so that whole racetrack is more than just a racetrack. It should be a big public amenity. So the Port of Bremerton is the lead on that. The county doesn't have much to do with that, but I wanted to share this with the group. All right, and then you asked me about parks and forests. So we have special guest Jim Aho. I'm starting with your project. The Illahee Forest Reserve is constantly in expansion thanks to this man. Raise your hand. And the county just closed on a purchase of 16 acres, right? 16 acres. And I put a picture of the pond. Isn't that pond part of it? Yeah. So pretty exciting, beautiful addition to those forest lands. In this graphic, the new extension is so, and then the rest of the orange Jim is still working on in partnership with your county partners. Am I right? Okay. All right. Another expansion that just happened was the county remember I told you about the conservation futures tax? It's like $12 a parcel or something. The county is still collecting that. That's what I started my career on. The county's still collecting that. It's about $1 million a year. That's where we got some of the money to put into the Illahee project. I'm hoping that we can help the Great Peninsula Conservancy with a big expansion that they just did on the Clear Creek Trail. They purchased the farm at the very northern end of the Clear Creek Trail. And the county has entered an agreement with the Great Peninsula Conservancy where they're doing all the trail maintenance and cleanup. So that's new, and things seem to be running a lot better all along that trailway. Oh, and for our bicycle advocates, what I'm hoping, and this is in District 1, is that the new piece of property that the Conservancy purchased is a critical link for the bike lane or the trail that goes up to Trigger. It goes through Clear Creek and ends up at the Banger Base overpass. The property they just bought would allow the trail to expand to the northern part of the Clear Creek Trail and connect to some of the neighborhoods in there. So I'm hoping in the near future that is a trail that we can extend. Yeah, excuse me, am I getting tired? So I'm almost done. The other thing we're working on with the DNR is asking them to not log some of Green Mountain. And this map shows the areas that county staff working in partnership with the Kitsap Environmental Coalition have identified as key parcels to not log. So we're just asking them to hold off on logging. We would like these parcels protected because they're some of the last remaining mature forest in Green Mountain. And Green Mountain has been sort of a slush fund for the DNR. Whenever they need some timber, they've been coming out to Green Mountain because we don't complain. So now we're complaining and we're asking them to protect some of the really cool trails that are out there. And then the last one I have on here is a future project that is Kitsap Lake to Jarstead Park Trail. That is really, a lot of that is in Bremerton's jurisdiction to build, but that would be really cool too. And the county is all the commissioners are on board with doing something there. So that's something to talk to Bremerton City Council about. All right, and then you wanted to talk about federal impacts. There are going to be a lot. And I think we can get into more detail on that if people have questions. And then I'm going to wrap up with, we are doing a community survey. It's going out to 4,000 people randomly in the unincorporated parts of the county. And then the survey will be disseminated throughout the county, cities and unincorporated. And we're hoping for a really good response rate because this is a national survey. So we can compare our answers across the state and across the region and across the country. And we're really excited about it. It's the first time that the county has surveyed residents in over 20 years. So we're getting this out and it's fun questions. It's like, what do you think of your parks? Do you like your school district? What would you like to see done differently? It's fun. And that is my presentation. And I went longer than I told you I would. Okay. Okay.
So now when questions from the audience, and I want to begin with You mentioned the tree canopy that they're trying to preserve. I think they can.
I'll repeat your question.
Does it go, you didn't specify whether it was the county or the city?
It's for only for the county. The tree canopy ordinance is for the county, and it's for projects of 4 houses or more. So if you're a single house or 2 or 3, it doesn't, you don't, it doesn't impact you. It's for the bigger projects in the county, not in the cities. But we're hoping that it works really well and the cities like it and want to incorporate it. Yes.
To the west?
Oh, in fact, I'm sorry. Thank you. It's only in the UGAs, actually. It's not in the rural parts. No, if it's zoned rural, it doesn't impact you because there's other rules in place to protect tree canopy in the rural parts. So it's in the UGAs. So it's like in your neighborhood. Yeah.
Yes.
Probably the worst pedestrian place in the whole United States, getting around Silverdale.
Oh.
Fortunately, I drive. It's a transit thinking about having a circulator.
Yes. Yes, actually. Yeah, and part of that, I don't know when it starts, but there is supposed to be a circulator specifically linking to the hospital and coming through there. Yeah, Kitsap, I'm on the Kitsap Transit Board. Kitsap Transit is also funded by sales tax dollars, so it's not like it has an expanding tax base. And everybody wants new routes, but we're focusing on the urban areas where the most people can be served, and Silverdale is one. Yeah.
I admire transit. They're tremendous.
Yeah, I think that too. It's a limited service, but it's excellent. Yeah. Like it's gonna go in a loop around Silverdale.
But is that what a circulator is?
Yes. Oh, yes, it's a bus or a small bus. I don't know what size they're gonna use. They'll probably start small, but it would be, like down Silverdale Way past the mall, then up, I don't know, Buckland Hill over to the hospital and back down. It's that kind of a route.
And you do that. Accessible.
They're all supposed to be handicapped accessible. Yes. And Kitsap Transit, there's a new bus transfer station on the top of the hill in Silverdale, just past the hospital. You wouldn't, unless you actually transfer buses between Silverdale and Bremerton, you probably wouldn't come across it. But it has, if not the state's first, one of the state's first, it has a magnetic recharger, so that the buses can just drive over it, and the electric buses will recharge while they're standing there for 15 minutes waiting for people to come. It's not working yet, but that's the promise.
Well, thank you very, very much. That was really informative.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There's one more question on the chat, and they said, can you talk a little bit about how the cuts in federal and state funding will affect us?
Yeah. It's such a huge question. So probably it'll impact everything in your life at some point. And for county government, or the way that we deliver services, it will most likely impact us with transportation funding, with Medicaid, which is low-income health care services, and we're already seeing it a little bit with our affordable housing programs. So we're expecting reductions. They haven't hit yet. So that's why I kind of skipped through that, because we know they're coming, but we don't know what they are. They're also, one of the big ones is in emergency management. Similarly, we don't know what those cuts are, but the federal government and the state government contribute a lot to the county's emergency preparation and our management system. And we just don't know. So for the most part, we're acting business as usual, and then we will take each hit as it comes and figure out what to do about it. The other part of it is when we want to get a grant from them, we sign a contract. And there is a lot of language in the federal contracts that it's possible the county commissioners won't want to sign. That again is something we'll have to address when the time comes.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay.
Hey, everyone, have a good night. Thank you.